As a Guild Wars 2 content creator, it is my humble duty to praise the good and highlight the bad, in hopes to turn Arenanet into a company worth mentioning among the larger games industry. The last time I criticized the game, I spoke about the lack of community around the game in the content creation sphere. I talked about some of the flaws that the game had inherently and my issues with the new release, which was Secrets of the Obscure. But what was a general unease for the direction of the company has turned into something greater, something more concerning. This time we will look at Soto and Janthir and see exactly what we are getting from this decades-old company. This downward spiral of Arenanet's content release cycle started at the end of Season 4 of Living World, with the announcement and release of the Icebrood Saga. The Icebrood Saga was the third iteration of what was supposed to be an expansion-free Living World Cadence, where you would literally get all of the updates for free as long as you would play the game. The quality of the updates were generally pretty good, albeit short on story, no new weapons or legendaries, but maps like Granthmar Valley, Bajora Marches Part 1 and 2, Drizzlewood, North and South were not nearly as bad as some of the other releases that Arenanet was known for both previously and, as it turns out, yet to come. Sure, one half of a map every 2 months was not ideal, but during this period, they released a total of 6 strike missions, 4 armor sets, with the Raven and Bear Ceremonial, Stone Summit, and Runic Armor, a variety of weapon sets that were upgradable in appearance, a number of masteries which were useful internal to the maps that they were associated with, and things like the Way Station, which are a staple outside of the Icebrood Saga content. And I'm going to intentionally ignore champions here, and I'll tell you why. This time in history, Arenanet was at their absolute worst. The game was on the brink of death. There were massive layoffs. COVID-19 completely wrecked their studio, having a majority of the content releases with no voice acting, and they still managed to scrape together both champions while hitting the emergency "we are going to Cantha" button, releasing their last of the 3 traditional expansions, where they subsequently dropped the whole Jormag Primordus storyline, put the live server on life support with champions and dragon response missions, while they tried to get out of the hole. The Icebrood Saga from Granthmar Valley to North Drizzlewood was released from September 17, 2019 to July 28, 2020, basically 1 year. It followed a similar release cadence of about every 3 months. Taking a look at what was released in each of these updates would make your head spin. Infusions, enrichments, new skins, combat tonic, strikes, guild decorations, full or partial armor skins. I think you see where I'm going with this. IBS, while being intertwined with some of the most unfortunate external circumstances outside of the developer's control, it is still some of the most replayed content today, with Drakkar, with Drizzlewood South, North, and Granthmar event chains, with IBS 5 or Easy 3 and Dragonstorm as the instanced content. And like with the new mini expansions, Arenanet has sold the players the same pig with a different shade of lipstick, or did they? Now, I'm going to speed up this part because it's not the point, but NCSoft gave Arenanet a spanking at some point. They dropped End of Dragons, which was objectively good and holds up with its peers, Path of Fire and Heart of Thorns, even though I wouldn't say it's better. It has features that are nice, but then they released Gayala Delve, which, while most people only criticize the tunnel portion, I'm going to say that the entire thing is pretty bad. The only thing that was good was Ambergris fishing holes, which were nerfed and made the map basically pointless, and it was such a wasted opportunity. And then what were we sold after this map? The new expansion cycle. Something exciting, something new, except familiar, something we all know and love. You see, it's the expansions you know and love, except a little bit less. And it's like the Living World, except you gotta pay for it. Well, you only gotta pay a little less for it. Well, there are a lot of complaints about the launch of Soto, and you are slowly seeing history repeat itself with a lot of those criticisms, and it is tied to the release cadence of these expansions. Secrets of the Obscure was undermined by a complete lack of transparency from the studio, the lack of an actual social media manager that could relay information, answer questions, and it just led the community developing things like this to try to understand what was happening to the game at each of these updates. Now, Soto has been beaten to death with criticism. The key thing to understand here is that there were 2 strikes released on launch and no communication of anything else, at least up front. Janthir Wilds is being received positively even by the likes of more critical creators like myself. I've been having fun in the new maps, working through some of the event lines, and I am enjoying the new weapons. However, I have been noticing something. How do I know? Well, in the content creation community, people are starting to make tier lists. People are starting to make other filler videos. People are on Reddit complaining about pomegranates. The sweatiest among us Guild Wars 2 players were done with every amount of content in just short of 24 hours played. Even at my casual pace of 8 hours a week, I am complete with the masteries, complete with the story, map completion, and whatever achievements I was interested in. And now I have no reason to play the new maps. A key feature that was meant to keep people engaged with the 2 Janthir Wilds maps was homesteads. And frankly, while it is a great feature to include, it is a primary feature that should have been treated like a secondary one. The legendary spear should have been released with the homestead on launch at bare minimum, but I'll talk about Sill's perfect release cadence in a minute. First, let's talk about homesteads. As I had mentioned before, the homestead is a great addition where some players will be attracted to the game because of a strong player housing based system. However, outside of designing for your personal use, it's not really a feature that is easily showed off. You cannot make your homestead available to a squad or while you are offline. And while auto gathering is nice, the payoff from losing bonus materials from glyphs, it not counting towards your daily gathering, and other oversights made it kind of not user friendly. The homestead is just a technological amalgam of the home instance from 12 years ago and the decorating mechanics from the guild hall with a slight revamp. The coding nature of Arenanet is just spaghetti on top of spaghetti, which is why dungeons will never change, why bugs never get fixed, and why homesteads are forever to be in this eternal limbo of not really being better than the home instance, but not really quite as good as the guild hall. The biggest problem that people like me have with homesteads, and the reason why I choose not to engage with them, is that it is nothing but a sink. Guild Wars 2 is not The Sims, it is not GTA 5, and most people play this game for other reasons. And because it is a sink, it prevents people who would otherwise casually engage with it from engaging with it at all. You see, in MMOs there are 2 types of content. There are farms and there are sinks. Some are transactional, like World vs. World, where people spend money on siege or food or whatever, and gain some back in the form of account-bound items or bags. Some are direct farms, like Silver Waste, Fractals, or Metachains, while some are direct sinks, like legendary items, legendary armor, decorations, typically turning some tradable currency into something account-bound, and that is what made Icebrood Saga so successful and so replayable. Icebrood Saga strike missions are fast and rewarding. Drizzlewood South is one of the most rewarding open world farm maps. Bajora and Granthmar Valley have meta bosses that fit into larger meta trains with ease. IBS introduced a number of sinks in the form of the Con chest, the Jormag infusion, and other armor and weapon skins. But largely the currency from strikes could be easily converted for use in other goals, primarily legendary weapons. Secrets of the Obscure introduced almost only sinks for materials primarily acquired in Soto, with no endgame items to work towards on launch, and then when the legendary relic came out, it was given to the majority of veterans for free. It would have almost been better to tell everybody that, hey, it just sucks to suck and everybody has to craft it. I personally would have laughed if that happened, even though I do have 7 legendary runes, but I think it would have been nice to have some item to actually work on. With Janthir, we are kind of seeing the same thing. Homestead materials being primarily gathered around the maps, being sold on the trading post to the few people who are interested in decorating, only to find out the shareability, decorating limit, and so on of the instance is limited, and it is not the sandbox that people thought it was going to be. Now, I put out a first impressions review of Janthir as a whole with some of my general complaints, so I won't rehash them here, and instead I'll just get into my perfect content release cadence on what it would look like. First things first, we would continue with the 1-year expansion cadence. The primary expansion story would be 3 maps with the entire story on launch. One map would be Gronthmar Valley or Classic-esque with multiple event chains running around. Janthir Lowlands did this well. Second map would be a world boss map, and I would like to see something closer to Dragonfall with event chains being completed to spawn the big bad. I think most people enjoy this style of map, and I think it also prevents having to complete events that only spawn during the world boss. I did not like that in Janthir Sindri, and I think most people find it annoying. The third map would be a big meta map. This would be your big bad of the expansion or the open world variant of the big bad. Think Suwon, think Mordremoth, think E-Park in the open world. All of this, the entire story, 3 maps, 3 distinct feels would be released on launch. Additionally, 1 legendary item crafting using these 3 maps would be available on launch, and there would be other long-term goals like cosmetic infusion collections, wizard vault quests. I would like to see legendary item style quests that would kind of take you around, but if you want to include it in the wizard vault instead but have a little bit more flushed out, that'd be great. There would be 1 instance encounter, whether it's fractals, raids, strikes, and it would include a challenge mode, and then there would be a lull for 6 months with balance updates, bug fixes, event and difficulty tuning taking place during this 6 months on the released content. After 6 months, there should be a major feature release. This should include a new PvP map or a new PvP game mode, new additions to World vs. World, the legendary challenge mode for instance content, and 1 additional map with follow-up story. This would be a standalone map, and it is designed to close threads tied to the expansion. If all the threads were closed, it is a good time to do world building and expand on characters and what their motivations are. As the primary selling features, that's up to Arenanet to figure out. Obviously, only 1 instanced encounter is not enough, so you would need to find a way to include more, probably after the 6-month update. So you would do 1 on launch and then do 2 later down the road, or so on. However, I do feel like the primary selling features are going to be limited because we are already running into weapon bloat. It is becoming apparent that many classes have weapons just competing with each other that fulfill the same role, and we aren't really capped just yet, but we are nearing the end of the weapons as an alternative to elite specializations. Lastly, I would charge $40 for the standard edition. The $25 shrinkflation expansion might be working when it comes to annual revenue in comparison to just giving away content for free, but imagine if it was actually priced appropriately. I think 40, 75, and 100 should be the tiers, and the cost of everything is going up, so just charge more for the product and actually deliver a product worth playing that's going to keep people engaged for an extended period of time. And before we end, I want to say that Arenanet isn't some small indie dev company standing up to the man. That was who they were 20 years ago. Sure, many fundamentals have stayed the same, many excuses have stayed the same, but they have a little over 300 employees. And I get it, business needs to diversify, they need to work on future products, expand IPs, and so on. Guild Wars 2 is their lifeblood, it is their primary IP. IP. However, it is feeding multiple areas, not just Guild Wars 2. And I think it's not a game problem or a people problem. I think the devs and the leadership that they have are doing the best they can, but it is the business decisions being made and how they are handled between the Arenanet and NCSoft business dynamic. It pains me and every other veteran player to see these absolutely game-changing ideas implemented in an absolute trash way and then being neglected. World vs. World needs attention, SPVP needs attention, the game UI needs attention, the endgame loop needs attention. Less than 3 weeks after launch, I am 100% done with the entire expansion. Is it worth $25? Absolutely. It's arguably worth more if you count the future releases. However, if you can release it all up front, it would absolutely be worth more. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?